Is this thing on? I am going to be talking about a topic that has been on so many artists' mind. I'm sure you've heard this before and probably 100 times. Trust the process. Now, this phrase has been one of those things that seems like a really wise quote that artists from many generations or even artists who have come before me, gone through their journey and their chapter, and then they say, trust the process. And it has come to a point where sometimes you sit down and something does not work out, and instead of finding what you can do, we end up telling ourselves, trust the process. Now here is my question to you. What exactly is the process? And what if I told you that this very statement is exactly what's keeping us stuck? Now, most artists don't exactly know what it means to trust the process. It's almost like this elusive island that we are waiting to finally land on. And if you think about it, trusting the process is basically a way to say that there will be an outcome. So we end up thinking about chasing an elusive outcome, like that island that I was talking about. So we end up chasing outcomes, scrolling for inspiration, saving tutorials to things that we really like based on how it looks without really knowing how we got there. When you're self-taught, your learning is reactive. You see something pretty and you try, and maybe you try a new technique because someone says that it's advanced. And then you try and you keep thinking, I should know this by now, and why is this not looking like how I expected? And the saddest part is really when people start saying that it's because they are not talented. And this really has nothing to do with talent. Instead, what if I said it's because you don't have a map to get to that island? And you don't need more tutorials, you just need to know the skills that are required at the stage and experience that you are in so that you can slowly make your way in a way that feels progressive, scaffolded, that helps you to feel safe enough to explore your own area of learning. So if you're anything like me, doing lots and lots of practice, trying to find your way through the sea of process, and starting to believe that talent plays a huge role, I want you to know that the problem is not discipline. It's not about how much you practice. It's really about direction and knowing the steps it takes to help you to get to this elusive island. So let's talk about the process. You can show up every single day and be painting, but it's not just about putting paint to paper. It's knowing what you're showing up for. If you sit down and you paint every day and you're still not sure what is working and what isn't, and you continue on this hamster wheel where you are still searching for answers, then I totally get why trust feels so elusive and hard to find. And that's what no one tells you about what it means to trust the process. Because without direction, even your best efforts are going to feel like failure. And this is exactly why I created the Artist Passage, which maps out the various stages that we go through and milestones to help artists to find direction in their learning so that they can stay focused on where they are at, that allows you to see your practice in seasons and really help you to stop comparing your outcome with others in a blind hope of finally getting to paint like. So now I want to show you how that really looks like. We're going to paint one flower, and this is a sunflower from one of my classes in Brush Movement Collective called Shady Beauties. And I'm going to be walking you through each stage of the journey so that you know how skills develop as you move from one stage to the next while painting the same subject. So this is going to show you that we can't judge whether a painting is good or bad, or whether you have talent, but it's driving at your need for direction and focus. Because once you know exactly what your stage is asking for, you will stop chasing perfection and style, and you're really going to grow with the process for real. I want to demonstrate for you what it means to have a plan, to know what skill is actually relevant for your stage. Now we are going to be taking one simple subject, and specifically we are looking at the sunflower. Now this sunflower painting was done in Brush Movement Collective, and this is actually a time where we were exploring how to capture shadows in your painting. Now let's think about a stage 1 artist. And this is a curious explorer, and at this stage we are kind of figuring out how to capture loose brush strokes. You would notice that at stage 1, this is all about discovery. We're kind of figuring out how water and pigment react, how the brush is applying paint to paper. Your shapes might be wobbly and your colors might bleed into one another and you might get mud, but that's okay because the focus right now at stage 1 is not beauty, it's kind of just learning how watercolor works. Now this is also an early version of the sunflower, and you can see that it might look a little bit more flat and loose with some blooms and unpredictability, and this is okay because at stage 1, as I said, we are just getting to know our paint, our supplies, and also how our brush works. Now here we are starting to get a little bit more structure. We are beginning to experiment, and we're starting to not just be thinking about how our brush works, but also overall shape and how we want to implement the use of some layers to indicate shadow. And since we're now familiar with brushwork and we are able to get confident strokes after graduating from stage 1, we are looking into understanding our paint and water ratio, which is exactly where we play with color values. You will notice that in this sunflower, we are now kind of taking our sunflower where we are representing light and shadow by changing up the color values. At this stage, we are not aiming for a perfect flower. Some of your petals might look a little awkward, maybe the direction is a little off, and you are still learning how to figure out values, how much to add and how much to put. And you might be painting more, but at the same time unsure of when and where to add layers, because that will bring us into stage 3. And at stage 3, this is an artist who is more confident in knowing how your brush behaves, whether it is the strokes that it provides and also how much water and paint it can carry. This is the time where you are starting to make your own decisions, like understanding where to place highlights, using different effects in your watercolor, whether you want hard edge or soft edge, knowing how to taper your strokes, and you are also shifting from execution to expression. At stage 3, you are no longer just painting a sunflower, but rather you are trying to capture your version of it. The stage 3 artist is probably one who actually knows what the meaning of trust the process is, just because of their ability to already understand the foundations of watercolor, how it works, and what to do in order to troubleshoot. It becomes a lot easier to trust when you have an awareness of how things work. And this brings us down to stage 4 and 5, and I love to group the two of them together because stage 4 and 5 is really about artists who are working with a lot of clarity. They know exactly how to use space, contrast, and composition to build their flower. They are no longer just painting what they see or how someone else does it, but they are trying to express their inner creative voice where they are understanding exactly when to stop, when to use specific techniques, and how to guide a viewer's eye to create movement. The colors that are chosen at the curator and the wizard stage is also chosen just for looseness and harmony and not just for realism. So this is the stage where the sunflower really becomes a body of work and not just a practice piece anymore. So as you can see, after looking at all the different sunflowers and understanding what we mean by being able to work through one stage at a time and understanding what each stage entails, this direction allows us to now say we can trust the process and not just the results, because we know that while we are in specific stages, the results might not necessarily pan out to what we expect. And this is just part of the practice and the rhythm of learning, depending on where your stage is and what your stage is trying to actually teach you. So as you can see, trusting the process is not so romantic. In fact, it's repetitive. It's really the boring stuff. And it's the reps that really matter later. At the same time, it's also so sacred and important because you continue to show up again and again, even when your art looks like a mess. And that said, even while it's looking like a mess, you know exactly what to focus on and what you are working towards. So if you're still noticing that you're feeling stuck in your own art practice, this is how the artist passage really gives you clarity. That roadmap that allows you to go from one stage to the next, understanding what the different milestones are, and also giving you the opportunity to focus on yourself. I hope, friends, that this has inspired you. It is not about doing more, it's about creating with more intention and leaning into what matters most right now. And in doing so, you're going to begin to trust yourself that the results that will come later has really come from a practice that is purposeful, intentional, and fills your creative cup. So before we end this video, my question to you is, are you ready to now trust your process? Oh, and before you go, if you would like to know how the roadmap looks like, what stage you are at, and also the different features of each stage and the milestones, I would love for you to get into the description, and that's where I provide resources for artists to help you to identify your stage and also understand the skills that matter. I can't wait to see you on the inside.